listen to me because I'm going to ask you to make some judgments in a minute. Robin knows my wife. My wife is a very analytical person. She's an excellent businesswoman. She runs our financial part of our business. And a few years ago, many years ago now, she was doing an update of our financial picture and came to an obvious conclusion that many of you probably come to. She mentioned it to me one night at dinner. She said, you know, the absolute best investment year in and year out that we have is our home. Real estate, because of, and she had all the right answers, because of leverage and appreciation and all kinds of things. Our home is a great investment. And then she came to a conclusion. We have a problem with the home we live in. We lived in it too long. We don't owe enough money on it. It's not a very expensive home, and therefore it isn't as good of an investment as it can be. So she said, I know we don't have to move, we're not being transferred or anything like that, but I believe that we should buy the biggest home we can afford. I said, okay, that'd be nice. Let's figure out what that is. So we wrote a spec. She is so analytical, she writes things down like the kitchen window must face the east so we get the morning sun, those kind of things. We also have some practical requirements, like we put the point of a compass in O'Hare, and we did one of those because I have to be so many minutes from O'Hare and on and on. We both have cars, so you got to have a certain number of garages and just all of that stuff. And it was a list, it was a requirement list. She picked me up one night, Friday night at the airport. She said, I found a good house that meets our specifications. Now, does this sound like an excited woman to you? Yeah. Listen to the language. A good house that meets our specification. Now, I am the farthest thing from being analytical that God ever made. I am admittedly a wild-ass intuitive. So I think in terms of houses as a place you make love, you sleep, you live. You've got to put it on and feel like a good fitting jacket, otherwise it's not right. But these are etheric things. These are not analytical things. So I say, let's go look at this house. So we go out there and I walk through this house and I'll be damned if it doesn't make every check mark. You know, it's within a certain number of minutes of O'Hare, it's got the right size rooms, it's got the right number of garages, the kitchen faces east, and on and on and on. So when we're all done, it is a 100% check mark, okay? There was just one thing we never put on the check mark, that I have to have a sexual reaction to a house almost. It's got to be, wow, isn't that neat? And that didn't happen. This was a building. It looked like Hitler designed it, you know. It was very functional looking. Yeah, brick, strong. So we drive away and she says, what do you think of the house? And it's a good house. And she says, what do you think of the price? Well, I think it's a little high for that market. She said, what do you think it's worth? So I shot her a number. And my number was ridiculously low. It was thousands of dollars underneath the price. And she said, well, I'll call the real estate woman and make an offer on that number. And there was silence for a few minutes. I said, no, don't do that. I said, what the hell will we do if they say yes? Now think about that for just a second. Because I want you to buy onto a rule that isn't always true, but it's mostly true. And that is that people don't negotiate with you unless they want to buy from you. Now that's hard to remember sometimes. You know, you're in the middle and they're negotiating with you. You're so afraid they're not going to buy from you and on and on. But unless, with a tiny majority of people that will use you to leverage off for the other people, most negotiations are with people that want to deal with you. So we call Grace Molding back, the famous real estate lady, and say, well, Grace, we're not going to make an offer on that house. And she's astounded. Why not? It was perfect for you. No, there's a few requirements we didn't put on it. One of them is Paul has to be in love with the house. poor Grace Molding. She wants to now pull out all the hair she has left in her head, but that really was a requirement. Now, one more step. It's several months later, and there is an unwritten requirement that Paul has to fall in love with this house. And Roseanne picks me up at the airport. This is an analytical woman who has never not been able to balance her checkbook in 30 seconds or less, all right? And she says to me, I found the right house. It's perfect. Now, I first want to check her fingerprints to make sure this is my wife. And once we're past that, what do you mean? What could be perfect? Oh, you'll love it. Wait till you see it. It's going on. So we drive out to this house. It's perfect. We got to have this house. It's absolutely perfect. It's got all kinds of, there's a little creek running by it. It's a long winding driveway. It's perfect. We got to have this house. Now, I am reminded of an old story with her. We had decided to buy a painting that was reminiscent of that reminded us of a scene, some bay in Northern California, Half Moon, something or another with sailboats. You know the place? Okay, beautiful. And one evening we were at a funeral, not a funeral, a wake. And I don't like those things. So once we saw that I was there, I went for a walk. And I walk into a gallery. And on this wall is this painting, the perfect painting for us. So I go back to the wake and say, I don't know how to bring this up. Grandma just died. You know, I don't know how to bring this up, but I found a painting that I think we should buy. Oh, Paul, now, yeah, he says, the guy's waiting for us. Just down the block of the gallery. Let's walk down it. Well, this guy's no dummy. I told him I was going to bring my wife back. He takes the painting off the wall, puts it on a tripod, and puts a goddamn blue light on it, and it's in the doorway you trip over when you walk in. So as we're walking, I says, how much is it? And I tell her, she chokes. Oh, I said, no, we'll be able to negotiate the price. I said, just look at it and don't give any reaction, and then we'll walk out, and if you like it, I'll go back by myself and pretend that you didn't like it, but I'm going to buy it anyway and do the best job I can. Got that? So we walk in, she looks at the painting, she says, oh my God, it's perfect. Well, can you see that's the wrong night to buy the painting? Because when you know as the seller that they really want to buy from you, does that do something to your negotiation position? It should. So now we are in Mr. and Mrs. Emmel's house, and we walk through it, and we get in the car and we go home, and on the way home she says, what do you think? I said, that's the house, let's buy it. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Elmo are selling, we just bought. Now comes the negotiation. Is that right? Now, I could skip the whole negotiation process. Mr. and Mrs. Elmo are asking for XXXX, and we could just pay them. That's no problem. Except my mama didn't make a dummy, and I don't want to do that, because I know Mr. and Mrs. Elmo asked for a few more nickels than they really think they're going to get. And who knows, maybe they'll throw in the lawn furniture and a kid. You know. So why don't we try and get what we can get becomes the game. So now, the game starts. I call Mrs. Molding up. You remember her, the real estate lady? Say, Grace, I want to make an offer on the Emmo's house. Great, I'll come over, we'll sign the offer, and I'll take it over there. I said, no, it's not going to work that way, Grace. What I want you to do is set up an appointment with Mr. and Mrs. Emmo for Roseanne and I. She said, we don't do that in Illinois. I said, what do you do in Illinois? She said, well, I get the offer in writing, take it to them, and then they counter. I said, okay, we'll talk to you later. She said, wait a minute, what about the offer? I said, I'm not going to offer that on that house. She said, why not? I said, Grace, we do not need this house. I'm not being transferred. It's an okay house. It's better than what we got. But I'm not going to get sucked into a game of an offer counter and all the rest of it and pay more than that house is worth. The only way I would buy that house is if I could buy it right. And the only way I would be convinced I could buy it right is if I could do the negotiations for it. Question. Is there negotiations going on?
You bet.
What are we negotiating? We're negotiating for the right to buy it in the format, who's going to negotiate the format and all the rest of it. So when Grace thinks I'm going to walk, because unless I'm willing to do that, there's no leverage, she said, give me 5 minutes, I'll call Mr. and Mrs. Emmel. She calls back and she says, because of their unusual situation, they're willing to see you. So I say to Mrs. Molding, good. By the way, what is their situation? Well, Mr. Emmel is the plant manager of a plant that's being built in Phoenix, Arizona, and the plant's ready to go up, and he's got to get out there, and Mrs. Emmel is pregnant, and she's going to have to stay back until the baby's born and sell the house, because once you move out of a house like that and take all your furniture, it doesn't sell too well. Mrs. Emmel is like a fire hydrant. Important thing to do is not talk for a few minutes. And I hear all of this, and so it is an education process, isn't it? I have to learn what they value. So now we go to Mr. and Mrs. Emmel's house, and I'm going to skip over the next 4.5 hours. We buy their house. Very well, I think. For them too, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I got what I wanted, an excellent price. Now we are driving home, Mrs. Regie and I, and she's not talking. And I say, anything bothering you, Roseanne? Other than the fact that I'm totally mortified, absolutely embarrassed, I've never seen you like that. If I was Mr. and Mrs. Emmel, I wouldn't have sold you that house with some of the stuff you said about it. In fact, if I was them, I'd never talk to you again. I said, Roseanne, they're moving to Phoenix. I give a shit. And she asked me a very important question. You run your business this way? She's about to dribble, all right? You run your business? This is loathing and disgust coming out of her. That's a good question. Can I run my business that way?
Probably not.
I can't. I absolutely can't. Because I have the same problem you got. I gotta go back next week. You have one account. You make them mad and see how good your career goes. Not too good, right? So one of the important elements of our negotiations technique, the one we have to develop here in this classroom, is that it has to be something that allows for an ongoing relationship. For example, let's pretend we negotiate something, and it isn't a one-shot deal, and you really get me good. You're sharp, and you've got the leverage this time, and you nail me. And this has nothing to do with being Italian, Susan, but don't I have to get you back? Do I have to get even? You know, the psychiatrists call it saving stamps. I'm going to save some stamps. You nailed me. I'll get you the next time if I have to. I mean, we're not done. You got me to. I don't need you on the other side of the table doing that, see? Now, let me talk to you a little bit about why I think Mr. and Mrs. Emmel got a good deal. I listened to Grace, the real estate lady, pretty good. And I said to myself, what does Mr. and Mrs. Emmel need? Well, they need to sell this house. They need to sell it quick. So listen to some of the things I put on the table. Mr. Emmel got a hell of a good deal. Guaranteed sale tonight. No contingency on financing. No contingency on selling what I have to sell. A $50,000 non-refundable down payment. No pressure on occupancy, immediate to whenever you want to move out. And all I want is a price that's 10, 12% under the market. We both got what we wanted. But it was absolutely important for me to understand what he needed to see if I could give it to him so we could do that. You see that?
You think he was getting a good deal?
I can never get into his head. But I got to believe that he said something to his wife that night that sounded like this. We might have sold it for a few $1,000s less, but we don't have to have people transferring through here. You can come to Phoenix with me. We can go together. You don't have to. I gotta believe that.
It wasn't a win-lose.
No, it was a win-win.
Well, you left something out too. Phoenix is a very depressed real estate market at the moment. So for him to move to Phoenix, his cost of living is going down anyway. So he probably had 10% to give away.
That would have been an excellent thing for me to have said to try and sell my point. There's just one problem with it. I didn't think of it. But it's a good point. Excellent. So part of what you're doing when you're negotiating is selling your proposal. the building value to it. Okay, so we've got a lot of things rolling around here. Now let's go to the other side of that negotiation, because that's not the kind of negotiation I want you to learn how to do. We have to start there, because the raw bones of negotiations live in that valley, so to speak, but we'll clean it up.